A big 117-110 win last night for the Wolves sees them go up 3-1 in the second round series over the Warriors. Hopefully just one final game left to go in that series coming up tomorrow night at Target Center, a big one at that. Joe, let's start off with you. After what you've seen so far in the series and basically throughout the rest of the playoffs and the developments last night, Jason Tatum going down injured, possibly for the rest of the playoffs. I don't know, it looked pretty serious to me. All the commentators across the NBA media landscape seem to think it's pretty severe with the way he went off. Are the Wolves favorites for the title now with what you've seen from the rest of the teams in the playoffs?
Well, in the actual betting odds, they're number 2, right behind Oklahoma City. So if you ask me from a skill and talent standpoint and who's been there and done that, nobody's really been there and done that of the true contenders who are left. If you look at the Pacers, if you expect them to go to the conference finals over the Cavs up 3-1, they have never been there, haven't done that. Young enough roster. The Knicks, they have not been there, have not done that. I'm assuming Jason Tatum's Achilles is ripped in half and he's going to be done for a year or more. The Wolves, they've gotten to the conference finals, so they've got a little taste of it. In Oklahoma City or Denver, well, Denver's been there and done that, obviously, but I still like Oklahoma City in what's essentially a 3-game series to come out of that with Game 5 tonight in Oklahoma City. So, yeah, I think Minnesota probably is the best, most complete, deepest, and dare we say healthiest team out of all of them at this point. Karl Anthony Towns might have broken a finger, but he played pretty well with it. So if we do end up in a situation where the Timberwolves are, in the conference finals and, God help us all if they make the NBA finals, I do think they are the best team left to compete right now. And it's exciting. And Anthony Edwards keeps taking the next step. We talked about it 2 years ago. He's like, he's got to take the next step. Well, this 23-year-old demon is leaping to new heights in his NBA lore. And my favorite thing was when Nickeil Alexander-Walker, after the game, said he could hear the pain from the crowd in San Francisco. Edwards was asked about it, and he goes, satisfaction. Just the best satisfaction ever. That's how he feels. The man drinks your blood. Not like those creepy people in Hollywood, right? But he drinks your blood in the rhetorical sense. And he's very dangerous, and he just happens to be on our team here in Minnesota, and it's insane that this man's only 23 and doing the things he's doing. And I do believe the Timberwolves, now that they've gotten that 3-1 lead on Golden State, they've broken their backs. They're the favorite in the West and in the entire NBA.
Timestamp this one, Will. 3:30 into this video. In about 5 years, when Anthony Edwards is the reigning defending best player in the NBA and people are sick of seeing him at the top of the NBA, there's going to be some conspiracy theorist nut job out there saying Anthony Edwards only does it because he drinks your blood, and here's the reference video. So that's going to be
it's not like drinking the blood of babies, like some elite.
You said it. Some conspiracy theory is going to take it out of context here. All right. Well,
by the way, 1 second here. All the conspiracy theorists were right again because the Mavericks won the lottery. So don't sit here and try to dethrone me from my conspiracy, place in this world. It's a joke, man. This stuff's all rigged. It's all rigged.
If you trade a star to an LA team, you're actually going to get the number 1 pick in that following draft.
Bill Simmons and everybody in the world back in March, they were like, yeah, the Mavericks, they're definitely, before Kyrie ripped up his knee, yeah, they're getting the number 1 pick in the draft. Cooper Flag for Luka Doncic was the trade. And everybody knows it now.
It happened. All right. Well, back to the topic that we started the show with. Do you feel that the Wolves are the favorites at this point in the playoffs with what we've seen where the rest of the series across the NBA landscape are at this point? Do you feel the Wolves are the favorites?
I would still go with the Thunder, which the betting odds reflect. I think they were the best team in the NBA record and net rating and point differential and all of those different things. During the regular season, they have an MVP candidate in SGA. They've got 2 unbelievable bigs. They've got incredibly gifted defensive wings in Alex Caruso, Lou Dort, co-star, and Jalen Williams. I do think that there's a world where they might need to, as Joe has been saying for a while, like take their lumps and not have this be the year that they just ascend and win it all. But that there was a clear top tier during the regular season of the Thunder, the Cavs, and the Celtics. The Cavs are on the ropes; they could be eliminated in a matter of hours against the Pacers in Game 5. The Celtics are probably done because Jason Tatum appears to have torn his Achilles, and I don't see how they would have any shot at coming back from down 3-1 against the Knicks without their best player. So that just leaves the Thunder, and I think the Wolves, as you saw kind of from some of the net rating stuff down the stretch, maybe more than any other team in the league, have the ability to play up to that elite tier one level. I mean, you could say that like the Lakers did it at times, the Warriors when Steph and Jimmy were healthy, but um, the Wolves took out the Lakers, and they're getting ready to take out. It looks like the Warriors, who obviously didn't have Steph in this series for the most part. But yeah, I think that they just have so many different ways that they can beat teams. So many different guys who can have a big night on any given night, and it starts, of course, with Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, who did something last night in Game 4 that hadn't been done by a Wolves duo since KG and Sam Cassell in 04, and in both scoring 30 points. Randall's been unbelievable. He's just kind of really, really rewriting the narratives around him as a playoff performer that were maybe unfair based on like a 15-game sample size with the Knicks. He's been so good in these playoffs. He really kind of kept the Wolves in it in the first half of Game 4 when they were kind of just hanging around with the Warriors, and Chris Finch said they were playing like losers. And then Anthony Edwards did what Anthony Edwards can do. He had a huge kind of step back, double contested three to end the first half, carried that over, scored 16 in the third as the Wolves pulled away. So I do think it's probably going to be Wolves Thunder. I will be personally cheering for the Denver Nuggets this evening to hopefully have that not be the case. But I think that would be a great series. I think whoever comes out of that, if you're assuming that it's going to be Knicks Pacers and then those teams aren't going to blow a 3-1 lead in the East, I think whoever comes out of the West will be the favorite in the finals. I do think Oklahoma City at this very moment would deserve to be favored in that series, but I think it would be a heck of a battle.
You mentioned Julius Randle there, and he's had an incredible postseason. As you said, 31 points last night, has been really a rock star for this team. Joe, how important has he been to this playoff run that the Wolves have been on? And after what you've seen this postseason, what you saw during the regular season, would you keep him next year? Would you sign him to an extension?
Yeah, I don't know how you don't at this point. I mean, the good news is you don't have to do anything right away. I mean,
Right.
He's got a player option, which is going to be based on how he's playing, really team friendly, 31 million or whatever it is next season. So you don't have to do anything. Now he could get ornery about it and maybe, force you into a situation where you need to make a decision this summer, but we don't know what's going to happen. He seems to like it here, but if you take him off this roster right now, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the scoring behind Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle was a little bit down. It's not like there was a Derek White or a Peyton Pritchard stepping up to score 18 or 20. It was Nickeil Alexander-Walker with 13 and Mike Conley with 11. Conley was missing a lot of wide open threes, a couple of bunnies at the rim. Naz Reid was terrible on defense last night, wasn't providing a whole lot of offense either. DiVincenzo, he hit a couple of threes, but he was kind of all over the place. And Radic once again, as his postseason dry spell has continued. I think he's shooting like 22% from three in the playoffs. Julius Randle's been the linchpin, man. I mean, if you take him off this team, all of the attention's on Anthony Edwards, and you have a situation what the Boston Celtics are going to find themselves in right now with Jaylen Brown being the alpha and really not a whole lot of elite scoring talent behind him. And it might be even worse in Minnesota unless guys, can figure out a way to stop being so inconsistent. Hello, Dante DiVincenzo, Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Mike Conley. So he's been incredible. They've learned to play a style of basketball. Chris Finch was on the radio the other day, and he said something I thought was really, really smart. Obviously coming from the head coach of the Wolves, but he compared the way Randle brings the ball up the floor and the offense goes through him to Nikola Jokic. It's like, yeah, it's a point forward. He's a power forward, and he's the power in the game is very obvious, but he's also finding a lot of players. And Golden State's trying to go to a zone to take that option away, and it really has worked in spurts. But eventually, Minnesota's been able to crack that code. But if you take Julius Randle off this team right now, it's a totally different story. That's a huge loss. This guy's averaging like 24 a game in the playoffs. Oh, it's Nolan. There's like 24 a game in the playoffs, and the triple double the other night. He's been absolutely phenomenal. So if I'm the Timberwolves, I don't think twice about this. I'm looking at him as a long-term piece of a championship puzzle.
Welcoming Nolan O'Hara into the show. Nolan, talking about Julius Randle and how excellent he's been for the Wolves this postseason. Would you keep him? Would you sign him to an extension? What I know the Wolves, Randle has the player option for next year, but what would you do with Randle this offseason, considering all the moves that they are going to have to make this offseason?
Yeah, I think you wait and see how everything plays out, but I think as it stands now, you absolutely try to re-sign him. The way they're playing in the playoffs here, he's been their most consistent player in the playoffs. He really adds a lot. When they kind of fall into those runs where the shots aren't falling, he's kind of the guy who can steady the ship and go get you a bucket. And I think any questions about the fit now we're seeing, like, after a full season, it's really clicking, and to think of what that could be like, you go into next season with the chemistry, with everything working already, and what that could be and what results you might get out of that. I think you absolutely try to keep him here, re-sign Nas, and try to run it back. Assuming you get to the West Finals here, and then you see what happens and how it plays out and where the dominoes fall, but. The way teams are kind of shedding salary now, it really seems like that could be a good core. And with the way he's just been phenomenal in the playoffs, they're just the most consistent player. I don't think you can let him go now.
Well, Julius Randle, how important has he been to this team in the postseason?
Yeah, he's been unbelievably important. Their second best player, clearly, probably their most consistent player. I mean, Ant's been really good outside of a couple kind of cold halves or nights. But I think with Randle, like, the nice thing is you don't have to make a decision right now. They're living in the moment. This team thinks they can go win a championship. So we'll see how the rest of these playoffs play out. It's a little bit like Sam Darnold-y, to use a cross-sport comparison, where after week 16 against the Packers, we're like, okay, yeah, you got to keep Sam Darnold. And then we know what happened after that. I'm not suggesting or saying that that's going to happen to Julius Randle and he's going to throw up some Darnold level duds to end the season, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. So I think you just evaluate the full picture, see what happens the rest of this series, which will hopefully only be one more game. The next series, potentially even a trip beyond, which is still hard to wrap my head around, that being a realistic possibility for this team. And then you make your decision from there. I think it's going to be interesting on both ends. I think there's going to have to be conversations between Randle's representation, Tim Connolly. Like, what does Julius Randle do? Does he opt in and to his player option and stay here for another year and then reevaluate after a year, knowing how well he's fit with Minnesota this season? Does he not opt in and test the free agent market with what he's put on film in these playoffs, knowing that he could probably get a big deal for more than 31 per year? Does that just mean maybe working out an extension with the Wolves that to avoid hitting the market? I don't know exactly what that's going to look like from either side's interest, but if he keeps playing like this, I think the Wolves are going to want to make a real push to keep him. And I also don't think that means they can't keep Naz Reid as well. I think there's ways to make it work. It gets a little trickier if you're talking about a multi-year extension versus just the player option. But at this point, Tim Connolly, I'm just kind of willing to blindly trust anything that man does. So I'll let him make the decisions this offseason.
Looping back to the question that started the show, since Nolan wasn't here, I want to get your opinion on it. When you look at what the Wolves are doing, up 3-1 in the series, you look at everything else that has played out in the playoffs elsewhere. You got Denver and OKC at 2 games apiece. That series seems to be going the distance between those two. You got Cleveland apparently on the verge of getting bounced by Indiana out of nowhere, it feels like. Jason Tatum possibly out for the rest of the season and maybe next season, depending on the status report of that injury. Do you feel like the Wolves are now kind of moving into that favorite slot for the title, Nolan?
I don't know if I'd say favorite slot for the title. I think probably whoever comes out of that OKC Denver series is probably the front runner. Because you've got Nuggets who have done it already. You got OKC who's just been the best team all year. But I think you have to say whoever comes out of the West is the favorite. And if the Wolves are coming off this, if they wrap this up Wednesday, they play 10 playoff games. They're through two series and 10 games. Denver, if they, knock off OKC, that'd be likely 14 games. They had two 7-game series, two really tough ones. And, we saw the Wolves kind of run out of gas out of that Denver series, so they could be playing a tired opponent. But I would still probably think whoever comes out of that series is the favorite. But they're in a good spot. I mean, they're in a really good spot, and they play Denver really well. So if it is Denver that comes out of that series, they'd have a pretty realistic chance at getting in there.
Guys, let me say this quick because this is written in the stars. It is like the Timothy Chalamet, is that how you say his name? Bob Dylan guy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Timothy Chalamet plays Bob Dylan, supports Gophers Athletics, is up for an Oscar, the movie of the year for a lot of people. He's a Knicks fan, sitting courtside next to Kendall Jenner. He's so happy. The Knicks are bouncing the Celtics. The Knicks go to the finals, and then there's confliction, right? What do I do as a Bob Dylan actor when I have to root for my Knicks against the Minnesota Timberwolves? This is written in the stars. It's already on the calendar. If you actually go to your future calendar on the dark web, you will find that in early June, there is a June 5 game, Wolves at Knicks, game 1 of the NBA Finals, and Chalamet will be the talk of that entire series. This is where we are headed, folks. Everyone knows it's happening. Now you do too.
That would be quite the finals for
But
so many
we're
different
leaving out the
storylines
obvious
reasons.
too, you guys. We're leaving out the obvious. Yeah, the storylines of DiVincenzo and Karl Anthony Towns and Julius Randle. It's just gold, baby. And
the
Ants in New
Villanova
York.
guys going against each other when the new Pope
Yeah.
is from Villanova. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all
Well,
written there that this is going to be the
back
final.
it all goes back to the Super Bowl with that Draymond Green commercial where the little girl shooting the hoops and the ball goes down the hill and what about the Wolves? Don't forget about the Grizzlies. So the Grizzlies next year are going to be on the come up, obviously based on Hollywood has to tell you what's
It's like
coming
a
next.
Kia
But-
commercial you're referencing.
Yeah, I think it is.
couple
But he
years old,
says
isn't it?
they say, what about the Wolves? They're worried about that, right? So it was kind of like they forecasted what's coming. So this is where we are. It's happening. Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago.
I don't really know
And
how
then
to
the other
smoothly-
commercial with the Villanova guys. I mean, this is just it's happening, guys. It's happening. We are going to get Cat v. Ant in the NBA Finals.
That'd be a wild turn of events.
Thunder
What-
Pacers finals confirmed by Joe here.
Yeah, that will
Adam
turn
Silver
everybody off.
crying into his
Yeah.
bedpost after that.
No. Adam Silver knows Shea's not entertaining. He's not going to put that on the calendar. And
He doesn't want to have to spend a
he's the
week in
show.
Oklahoma.
If you're going to have a mid-market team in the NBA Finals, you got to have a guy like Ant. That's the only way it's going to make money.
So when we talk about the Wolves possibly being in the final, let's kind of push back or step back from being sports analysts and go back to being Minnesota sports fans. How comfortable do you feel talking about the Wolves potentially being in the finals? Because this isn't a situation us Minnesota sports fans know, because it hasn't happened in a very long time outside of the Minnesota Lynx and the Minnesota Frost. Outside of those two teams, this doesn't happen all that often. Will, as a Minnesota sports fan, are you feeling a little weird about the Wolves potentially being in the finals and being a favorite potentially?
Yeah, that's kind of why I don't want to go. I don't want to jump the gun too much here. I want to focus on winning one more game against the Warriors on Wednesday, going into the next round, and taking it one game at a time there. Because you're right, it is crazy to think about. I mean, I was born in 1997. I've never seen one of the four teams play in a finals, much less win one. I do think it is possible, which is scary and setting up for heartbreak. But
As always.
My mantra the last few games, and even going back to the Lakers series, I was saying this last night, has been, we have Anthony Edwards and they don't. And I think that for as long as that is the case, the Wolves have a chance to win every game against any team and win a championship. I think he's that special. He's that level of good. I think he can absolutely, with the help of Julius Randle and Jaden McDaniels and all the other complementary pieces that we talk about, I think Anthony Edwards can lead the Wolves to an NBA championship. I don't know if that'll be this year. I don't know if it'll happen sometime in the future. I mean, obviously, I don't know if it'll happen at all, but I think he is good enough to do it. And I think the bracket has set up in a way that this year that it is right there for the Wolves if they play up to their ability, and they can't have these stretches like in the second quarter of game 3 where they don't make a shot for 6.5 minutes, or the first half of game 1 where they score 31 points, or some of the occasional droughts against the Lakers as well. They have to lock in and play consistently great basketball. And I think it's possible, but let's just take it one game at a time, not get too far ahead of ourselves, and start with beating the Warriors first.
Nolan?
This is sad.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Before Joe
I'd
goes
be,
philosophical, let's get
yeah,
Nolan's
I
opinion.
know. I know Joe's gonna have a much different.
Joe's going to
take
give
here,
me a therapy appointment.
But before we get there,
That's why I wanted this question.
let's look back at a year ago, and I think I know I was convinced the Wolves were going to the NBA Finals
Yep.
after they beat Denver in that 7-game semifinal series. They were the defending champs. They beat them. That was the team to be worried about, was Denver. And then, Dallas had knocked off OKC, I believe. And then you got Dallas in the Western Conference Finals. I was like, well, they're better than Dallas. Well, it turns out they were not better than Dallas. That was the matchup we should have been worried about the whole time. And they got bounced in 5. Now, I think it's a better Wolves team as far as like just knowing what to be ready for. You've got veterans, you've got your younger guys who've been there for a few years now in a row who understand what it takes. So there's that. But last year was the year where it looked like, man, I think they're there. And now it kind of looks like that again. It's like, oh, I think they're there. I think they can do it. They're going to be playing a tired team, whoever it is on the other side, and they'll be pretty quick into the Western Conference. I would just be. They're going to have to play a good team. They're going to have to play well. They're going to have to beat them. They're not going to be given anything here. So before we start saying that we're going to have an NBA Finals games here in Minneapolis and we're going to be playing whoever comes out of the East, I just wait till they get there. Wait till they win. They got to start by closing out the Warriors here. And then once they do that, they'll have their toughest series of the playoffs for sure, against OKC or Denver, and that'll be a dogfight no matter who it is.
All right, Joe.
It's sad.
Psychology session. Here we go.
It's a dogfight in your mind, and it's pathetic. You need to stop. Will, I want to talk to you right now because you were 485 days old when Gary Anderson went wide left and ruined your first year and a half of life.
You know
right?
my birthday?
I do know your birthday, September 19th, 1997.
That is correct.
Yeah. I got
did have to file paperwork to work here.
I did have to look at the health records to figure out when that was, so I could do the quick math there. But 485 days old back when that happened. Yep. You were 927 days old when Brad Radke's first pitch of the 2000 season was belted into the left field bleachers at the Metrodome by Gerald Williams. They lost that game 7-0, April 3rd, 2000. It was pathetic. It was sad. But guess what? Past trauma does not mean you have to experience more trauma and live in fear in the present day. Your brain doesn't know that it's 2025. Your brain is still living from when you were 485 or 927 days old. You inflicted, the teams inflicted immense trauma on you. And that's why it's hard for you to get excited or believe that something that's happening now or in the future could actually go well. You're preparing for disaster. It's fight or flight or freeze. You're frozen in time, my friend. You need to unthaw. You need to decalcify that pineal gland. Close your eyes. Look to this portion of your brain and really let that sucker erode. And then get angry and get mad and be like Ant after hitting that 30-footer at the half and be like, and then kill somebody in the third quarter. And then be satisfied with the fear and the pain of the suffering fans on the other side of the court. This is what it's all about. You are a victim of past trauma. It doesn't have to be that way for the rest of your life. I've told you this. I told you this when you predicted 6 wins for the Vikings. I told you this.
I don't think I
You
did
know,
that.
now if you want to, expect trauma, yes, continue the Twins thing. It's weird how you can't what's the word for it? You can't detach yourself from the trauma from the Vikings and the Wolves, but with the Twins, you're just always optimistic. I don't understand it because that's the team that's wanted to kill you and harm you forever, and they still want to kill and harm you. So you should expect trauma and be really vigilant about your expectations there. So there's some time in the future where, young man, you have to step up and overcome. Activate the pineal gland, the third eye. Look at the sun. Stare at it. It won't hurt your eyes. You'll be just fine.
All right.
Did you just say stare at the sun? It's not going to hurt your eyes?
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think we need
You just said a lot there, but I'm caught up on that last thing.
Disclaimer:
Really
if any
fine.
kids are watching,
do not listen to this. Yeah.
You'll be fine. Nobody's.
Just like RFK Jr. Do not listen.
I think the Wolves have a chance. I am not saying that. I'm not one of those Minnesota sports fans who just expects the other shoe to drop at all times and is waiting for, they're going to blow it. And I legitimately think this Wolves team can win a championship. I just think to come here and say up 3-1 in the second round, 7 out of 16 necessary wins in, that it's going to, they're going to do it. That's a little presumptive and early for my taste. But I think they absolutely have an opportunity to do it. And I don't think the Minnesota sports history means one bit to Anthony Edwards or Julius Randle or anybody on that team.
But it does to you. And that's what we're talking about, you here, not them.
Final question for the show.
Conversation shifted.
So I should blindly just think the Wolves are going to win the finals. That feels like I'm setting myself up
to be hurt and traumatized
for greater disappointment than if I take it one game at a time, mix my optimism with
you just enjoy the ride.
Bit of patience. Enjoy the ride. No. Exactly. I've been enjoying the heck out of this ride, watching all these games, watching with people. I was at Falling Knife last night. Great atmosphere. It was like 75 degrees outside. It's a lot of fun, and I think they can do it. I just think there's a lot of work that still has to be done before
high aspirations,
calling them favorites.
Low expectations. High aspirations, low expectations.
All right.
People
Final
with
question
expectations are set up for disappointment. You cannot be that way, but you can always have grandiose thoughts.
Final question here, around the horn quickly. How important is it for the Wolves to get this win in the next game and get a couple days off? Because obviously the Nuggets Thunder series is going to go 6, maybe 7 games, depending on how that game goes tonight. That game's going to go a little bit, or that series is going to go get a little bit longer. The Wolves can get a win tomorrow. They'll have a couple days off. How important is that for the Western Conference Final Series that they get the win tomorrow night? Will, I'll start with you, then Nolan, then Joe.
Yeah, it's big. I think you absolutely want to just close this out at Target Center, not have to have 3 full days off and then travel back to San Francisco for a game on Sunday. A potential Steph Curry return that doesn't seem like it's realistic tomorrow night. You got to take care of business here. Wrap this thing up in 5. Don't give the Warriors any sort of life. And I think they'll do it. I think they just have too much offense for the Warriors without Curry. I think they're like 11.5 point favorites in that game. The Warriors are probably going to be a little discouraged by the fact that they gave the Wolves a great shot in Game 3 for much of that game with Butler and Kuminga. They were leading at half in Game 4. Kuminga played really well again, and they just still couldn't do it. And I think I don't want to say that they're like broken, but I think the Wolves absolutely are going to go out and win this game and win this thing in 5. And it is quite important that they do so.
Nolan?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think as far as their chances, looking forward, you want the extra rest, you want the extra time to prepare, but I don't think it's like it's not like it's a dire situation. I think they're in a good spot. They've got this series. You obviously want to do it as soon as you can. You definitely don't want to give the Warriors hope if they somehow steal this game and then Curry's able to come back all of a sudden and make it back from that hamstring injury. You don't want to give them that hope, but I wouldn't say it's dire. I think it's like, his chances of coming back. I mean, hamstring strain, no matter even in coming back for Game 6 seems a little optimistic. The Wolves, I think even with Curry, they're just a better team. So I don't think this is like a dire situation where it's like, oh, if they don't close it out tomorrow, it's going to be a huge issue or anything like that. But obviously, you want the most time you can have to prepare. You want to be able to not give them any hope. You want to just be able to move on, look to the next, and start preparing for OKC or Denver, whoever comes out of that series. So you want to do it, but I don't think it's going to be like a dire situation or anything if they slip up tomorrow night and lose it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, Steph Curry's probably not coming back at this point. If he comes back in Game 6 and we happen to get to a Game 6, then you might have a little bit of worry. But I just think, the Warriors are broken at this point. They're going to have a hard time coming into Minnesota if Curry doesn't play. Even with Curry in the lineup and 75, 80%, it's going to be really hard to beat this team. I think Minnesota's starting to realize that, all right, we know how to avoid crumbling. They had to make the corrections at halftime, come out and just kind of exert their will. That's the way it's going to be. And then I don't think, I don't think the rest matters that much. We saw him rested, to start this series, and they came out real slow, and everybody on the broadcast team was like, "Oh, extra rest. Maybe they got some rust." I don't know. It took them a while to get going in this series against a tough defensive opponent. I'm not sure the rest matters all that much. If anything, it could be a positive for Minnesota on the in the realm that Oklahoma City or Denver is going to be tired if they go 6 or 7 games. That's the beauty of it. But Minnesota doesn't need the rest. They seem to have gotten plenty of rest in a lot of these games and short series. So the Western Conference Finals starts May 22nd either way. That is, what is that? That's next Thursday?
That's 9 days away, yeah.
Yeah, next Thursday. So May 22nd, Game 1. If that Thunder series can go the distance, that'd be great. Other than that, I don't think it matters at all.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Should be a fun game tomorrow night. Obviously, we'll all be watching with increased interest that Thunder Nuggets game tonight and how that plays out. But looking forward to reading all your coverage over at Timberwolves on SI. Go read the rest of their work over on Vikings, Twins, and Gophers on SI as well. Hit subscribe to the channel. It does help us get found. Also notifies you every time we post a new video here to the channel. We'll talk to you tomorrow with another topic for us Minnesota Sports. Talk to you later.